If you're over 60 and still storing your potatoes, tomatoes, or even olive oil in the fridge, I have some news that might surprise you. For decades, we were told the fridge keeps everything fresher, longer. But what if I told you that some of the most common foods in your kitchen are actually losing their taste, even becoming less healthy, just because of where you store them? Cold temperatures can do more harm than good for certain foods, especially if you're focused on staying healthy, keeping inflammation down, and making every bite count after 60. In today's video, we're breaking down 10 foods that should never be kept in the fridge, and how storing them properly can actually support better digestion, nutrient absorption, and long-term wellness for older adults. So grab a cup of tea, maybe a notepad, and let's start with a food we all have in our kitchen, but many of us are storing the wrong way. Have you ever wondered if your fridge might be doing more harm than good to some of the foods you rely on every day? Take potatoes, for example. They seem simple enough, a humble staple in many American homes, from Idaho to Illinois. But storing them in the refrigerator could be turning them into something you'd never knowingly feed your family. When raw potatoes are kept in cold temperatures, the starches inside them begin to convert rapidly into sugars. This chemical shift may seem harmless at first, but the consequences run deeper than just an off-putting taste. Once cooked, particularly when fried or roasted at high heat, those excess sugars react with amino acids to form acrylamide, a potentially harmful compound that scientists have linked to increased cancer risk. According to the FDA, acrylamide levels in over-chilled potatoes can spike significantly during cooking, especially in popular dishes like French fries or hash browns. And it's not just about health. The cold, humid environment of most refrigerators also speeds up spoilage. Potatoes stored this way tend to become mushy, develop unpleasant odors, and lose their firm texture, making your mashed potatoes mealy and your roasted wedges limp. Instead, experts recommend keeping potatoes in a cool but not cold, dark, and well-ventilated place, like a pantry or a wooden crate in the garage. If you've ever visited a farmer's market, you'll notice they never refrigerate their spuds. There's good reason. Room temperature preserves both the flavor and the structure of the potato, while also slowing sprouting. Avoid plastic bags, which trap moisture and encourage rot. Mesh bags, paper sacks, or even old-fashioned wicker baskets work best. And always keep them away from onions, which release gases that accelerate spoilage. If you're looking for a longer shelf life without compromising quality, these small changes in storage can make a world of difference, both for your health and your next dinner. Up next, we're taking on a fruit that many treat like a vegetable, but storing it in the fridge could be robbing it of its flavor and nutritional punch. Have you been refrigerating your potatoes? Or do you have a better way to keep them fresh? Let us know in the comments below. Have you ever taken a bite of a tomato and wondered why it tasted like cardboard instead of the vibrant, juicy fruit you expected? You might want to check where you've been storing it. Tomatoes are one of the most misunderstood fruits in American kitchens. Yes, fruits. And despite the popular belief that refrigeration keeps everything fresh, tomatoes are one of the worst foods to chill. The reason comes down to biology. Tomatoes continue to ripen after being picked, and that ripening process is essential to developing their full flavor, sweetness, and antioxidant content. But when you put tomatoes in the fridge, you interrupt that process. Cold temperatures deactivate the enzymes that are responsible for flavor development and aroma. A 2016 study from the University of Florida found that refrigerating tomatoes for even a few days can significantly reduce their flavor profile, making them bland, mealy, and lifeless on your plate. And it's not just about taste. Chilling tomatoes also decreases their levels of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant associated with reduced risk of heart disease and certain cancers. For older adults trying to eat more nutrient-dense foods to support cardiovascular and immune health, this small mistake could be costing you more than just flavor. The solution? Store your tomatoes at room temperature, ideally around 55 to 70 degrees F, away from direct sunlight. Place them stem side down to reduce moisture loss through the top. If you've picked up underripe tomatoes, say from a grocery store or farmer's market, allow them to ripen on the counter. Only once they're fully ripe, and you can't eat them right away, should refrigeration be a last resort. And even then, bring them back to room temperature before serving to recover some of the taste. Also, Keep tomatoes away from ethylene-producing fruits like bananas or apples, which can cause over-ripening and spoilage. It's a simple shift that can make your sandwiches brighter, your salads more satisfying, and your sauces more flavorful, all while helping you get the most from every bite. Next, we're looking at a kitchen essential that's in nearly every savory dish, but loses its power when stored too cold. Do you refrigerate your tomatoes out of habit? Or have you already made the switch to countertop storage? Share your tips or questions in the comments. Have you ever opened your fridge and been hit with a strange, lingering smell, only to realize it's coming from the onions you stored in the crisper drawer? You're not alone, but you're also not doing your onions any favors. Onions are one of the most versatile and essential ingredients in American cooking, from chili in Texas to stews in Vermont. But storing whole onions in the refrigerator might be the fastest way to ruin their flavor, texture, and shelf life. Why? Because cold, humid environments cause onions to absorb moisture quickly. That moisture doesn't just make them go soft, it invites mold, speeds up sprouting, and can turn a firm, flavorful onion into a slimy, bitter mess in just a few days. Even worse, refrigeration alters the natural starches in onions, turning them into sugars, which makes the flavor oddly sweet and unbalanced in savory dishes. There's another hidden downside too. Onions have a strong odor that easily transfers to other items in your fridge, and they also absorb smells from other foods. That means your butter might taste faintly like onion, and your onion might carry a note of last night's leftovers. Not exactly appetizing. The best way to store whole onions is in a cool, dry, and well-ventilated space, like a pantry, basement shelf, or open basket in a cabinet. Avoid plastic bags or sealed containers, which trap humidity and encourage rot. Instead, opt for mesh bags, paper sacks, or wire baskets that allow air to circulate freely. And here's a pro tip: never store onions next to potatoes. While they seem like natural pantry buddies, potatoes release moisture and gases that can cause onions to spoil faster, and vice versa. Of course, if you've already sliced or chopped an onion, the fridge is the right place, but only if you store it in an airtight container to lock in the smell and keep bacteria out. Even then, try to use it within a few days. Making this small change to your kitchen routine can help you get more flavor, less waste, and longer-lasting ingredients, especially helpful if you're meal prepping or cooking for just 1 or 2 people. Coming up next, a small but mighty bulb that's often misunderstood and easy to ruin with the wrong storage. How do you usually store your onions? Have you ever noticed a difference in taste or smell? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever pulled a garlic bulb from the fridge, only to find it sprouting green shoots or smelling slightly off? That tiny change in your kitchen habit might be costing you flavor, freshness, and even your health. Garlic is one of the oldest and most powerful ingredients in American and global cuisine, from Louisiana gumbo to classic Italian-American pasta sauces. It brings depth, aroma, and health benefits to your meals. But storing garlic in the refrigerator can quickly unravel all of that. Cold temperatures trigger sprouting. While those green shoots aren't dangerous, they are bitter and can overpower the flavor of your dish. At the same time, the high humidity inside most refrigerators creates a perfect environment for mold to grow between the garlic's paper-thin skins. This moisture exposure causes garlic to degrade faster, leading to soft, rubbery cloves with less flavor and a shorter shelf life. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Food Science found that refrigerated garlic not only loses its signature taste, but also undergoes chemical changes that reduce its levels of allicin, the key compound linked to garlic's heart-healthy, anti-inflammatory, and immune-boosting properties. For older adults looking to maximize nutrition in every ingredient, that's a big loss. The ideal way to store garlic is simple and low maintenance. Keep whole bulbs in a dry, ventilated container at room temperature. A mesh bag, ceramic garlic keeper, or even a small bowl on the kitchen counter away from direct sunlight works perfectly. Just make sure air can circulate and avoid plastic bags or sealed containers, which trap moisture and accelerate spoilage. Once peeled or chopped, garlic should be refrigerated, but always in an airtight container. And if you're thinking of preserving garlic in oil, a popular hack, do so with great caution. Improperly stored garlic in oil mixtures can become a breeding ground for botulism, a rare but serious foodborne illness. The USDA recommends storing such mixtures in the fridge and using them within a week, or better yet, freezing them in small portions. This small bulb packs a big punch, but only if you treat it right. Next, we'll talk about a beloved fruit that many people try to rush, only to ruin it by chilling it too soon. Have you ever noticed a difference in your garlic's flavor or texture, depending on how you stored it? We'd love to hear your kitchen experiences below. Have you ever sliced into an avocado only to find it hard as a rock? Or worse, brown and mushy inside? Avocados can be one of the most frustrating fruits to manage in the kitchen. Their ripening process is notoriously tricky, and improper storage is often to blame. If you've been tossing your unripe avocados straight into the fridge in hopes of keeping them fresh, it's time to rethink that move, especially if you're aiming to eat healthier in your 60s and beyond. Here's the science. Avocados ripen thanks to ethylene, a natural gas the fruit produces on its own. But this ripening only happens efficiently at room temperature. When you refrigerate an unripe avocado, you halt that enzymatic process, often permanently. That means you may end up with an avocado that looks fine on the outside, but stays tough and flavorless, no matter how long you wait. Even ripe avocados can suffer in the fridge if left too long. Cold temperatures can cause the flesh to turn grey or take on a watery, slightly rancid taste. This is partly due to lipid oxidation, a breakdown of the healthy fats that make avocados such a nutritional powerhouse in the first place. And that's a shame, because avocados are packed with heart-healthy monounsaturated fats, potassium, fiber, and antioxidants. For older adults focusing on managing cholesterol, supporting brain health, or keeping digestion smooth, this green fruit is a top-tier choice, but only when it's stored properly. So what's the best strategy? Let your avocados ripen naturally on the counter. To speed up the process, place them in a brown paper bag with a banana or apple, both of which emit extra ethylene to nudge ripening along. Once they give slightly under gentle pressure a good sign they're ripe, you can move them to the fridge if you need to keep them fresh for another 2 to 3 days. If you've already cut into your avocado, store the unused portion in an airtight container. Squeeze a bit of lemon or lime juice over the exposed flesh to prevent browning, and keep the pit in place if possible. It helps minimize air contact. These small adjustments can make all the difference between a disappointing avocado toast and a creamy, nutrient-rich delight. Coming up next, a fruit that often looks ripe from the outside, but suffers big time when exposed to cold. How do you keep your avocados at their peak? Have any ripening tricks or storage hacks to share? Let's swap ideas in the comments. Have you ever reached for a banana in your fridge, only to find its peel turn brown and the inside strangely firm and tasteless? You're not imagining things, and your refrigerator might be the reason why. Bananas are tropical fruits, which means they were never meant to live in cold climates. In fact, exposing them to refrigeration too soon can trigger a reaction known as chilling injury. This not only darkens the peel, but also disrupts the enzymes responsible for ripening, leaving the fruit's interior chalky, undersweet, and disappointingly bland. If you've ever bitten into a refrigerated banana and wondered why it lacked flavor, now you know. According to the USDA, cold temperatures can interfere with the natural conversion of starches into sugars that occurs as bananas ripen. This is especially important for older adults who rely on fruits like bananas for quick, easy-to-digest energy, potassium to support heart health, and fiber to aid digestion. A poorly ripened banana isn't just unappetizing, it also lacks the full nutritional benefits you're expecting. Worse still, moisture can build up on banana peels in the fridge, increasing the risk of mold growth, not something you want sitting next to your milk or salad greens. So what should you do instead? Store bananas at room temperature, ideally hanging on a hook or placed in a fruit bowl with good air circulation. If you want to slow the ripening process slightly, you can separate the bananas from the bunch. This limits the amount of ethylene gas they share, which helps delay over-ripening. Have a few bananas going too brown for your liking? That's the perfect time to repurpose them. Slice and freeze for smoothies, mash for banana bread, or add to oatmeal for a naturally sweet breakfast. Freezing is far more effective and healthier than refrigerating, especially when it comes to flavor and texture. These simple habits can help reduce food waste preserve nutrients, and make your morning routine a whole lot tastier. Next up, a summertime favorite that many of us toss in the fridge without a second thought and pay the price in lost sweetness. Do you refrigerate your bananas? Have any ripening or freezing tips that work well for you? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever brought home a perfectly round watermelon or a fragrant cantaloupe only to stash it in the fridge and later wonder why it didn't taste as sweet as the last one? The answer might lie in that chilly shelf. While it's common for many of us to refrigerate whole melons as soon as we get them home, especially during summer, doing so can actually work against the fruit's natural flavor and nutritional benefits. Melons like watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew continue to develop their sweetness and antioxidant content after being harvested, but only when kept at room temperature. Chilling whole melons too soon halts that ripening process, leaving you with a fruit that's watery, bland, or even slightly gritty in texture. In fact, a USDA study found that watermelons kept at room temperature had up to 40% more lycopene and beta-carotene, powerful antioxidants that support eye health and immune function, compared to those stored in the fridge. For older adults focused on boosting nutrition in every meal, this small shift in storage habits can make a big difference. Those juicy slices of melon on your breakfast plate or afternoon snack tray are more than just refreshing. They're a natural source of hydration, vitamin C, and cancer-fighting compounds, but only if they're allowed to ripen the way nature intended. So what's the best way to store them? Keep whole melons on the kitchen counter or in a cool pantry, away from direct sunlight. Once they're cut, it's a different story. Refrigeration becomes essential to prevent bacterial growth. Wrap the exposed flesh tightly in plastic wrap or store it in an airtight container and consume within 3 to 4 days for the best taste and safety. And here's a little-known tip. Letting a whole melon sit at room temperature for a few days before slicing not only enhances the taste, it can make the flesh juicier and easier to digest. Coming up next, a beloved kitchen staple that seems like it should last longer in the fridge, but actually dries out and goes stale twice as fast. Do you usually refrigerate whole melons? Have you noticed a difference in sweetness depending on how you store them? We'd love to hear your take in the comments. Have you ever reached for a slice of bread from the fridge, only to find it stiff, dry, and oddly tasteless, even though it's still within its expiration date? You're not alone, and the reason behind it might surprise you. Many people refrigerate bread thinking it'll last longer, especially if they live alone or go through a loaf slowly. It seems logical after all, cold preserves food, right? Not in this case. Bread is one of those rare staples that actually goes stale faster in the refrigerator than at room temperature, and the science behind it is well documented. When bread is stored in cold temperatures but not frozen, the starch molecules inside begin to crystallize rapidly, a process known as retrogradation. This draws moisture out of the bread's soft interior and makes it firm, dry, and far less enjoyable to eat. According to a report from the Institute of Food Technologists, bread can stale up to 6 times faster in the fridge than it does in a bread box or pantry. That's a big deal when you consider how many seniors rely on bread for simple, comforting meals, like toast with morning coffee or a quick sandwich for lunch. No one wants to bite into a dry, disappointing slice when it could have stayed fresh and fluffy with just a small change in storage habits. So what should you do instead? If you plan to eat your bread within a few days, keep it in a bread box, paper bag, or even a kitchen towel. Any breathable wrap that keeps out excess air but allows just enough circulation to maintain softness. Store it in a cool, dry place away from sunlight. But if you know it'll take you longer to finish a loaf, or you're buying artisanal bread that goes stale quicker, freezing is a much better option. Slice the bread first, freeze it in a resealable bag, and just pop out what you need. A quick toast or warm up in the oven brings it right back to life, almost like it's fresh baked. And don't forget, moisture is the enemy here too. Condensation inside a bread bag, especially plastic, can encourage mold growth, even in the fridge. That's why it's best to store bread in ways that minimize temperature swings and excess humidity. In the next section, we'll explore a golden kitchen ingredient that lasts nearly forever, but only if you don't refrigerate it. Have you been refrigerating your bread out of habit? Do you have a favorite way to keep it fresh longer? Share your best bread keeping tips in the comments. Have you ever opened a jar of honey from your fridge and found it thick, gritty, or nearly impossible to drizzle. That golden nectar, so smooth and pourable when you bought it, now looks more like crystallized syrup. But here's the thing. The honey isn't bad. It's just cold. And refrigeration is the problem. Honey is one of nature's most remarkable preservatives. Thanks to its low moisture content and high acidity, honey can last virtually forever if stored properly. Archaeologists have even discovered edible honey in ancient Egyptian tombs, still safe to eat thousands of years later. That's how powerful its natural composition is. But put it in the fridge, and everything changes. Cold temperatures speed up the crystallization process, causing the natural sugars, mainly glucose in honey, to form solid crystals. This doesn't make the honey unsafe, but it does alter the texture and make it difficult to use, especially if you're hoping to stir it into tea or drizzle it over toast. And for older adults trying to simplify their diets while avoiding processed sweeteners, honey can be a smart choice. It contains antioxidants and antibacterial properties that support immune health, but only if it's stored the right way. The best way to keep honey smooth and spoon-ready is to store it in a tightly sealed container at room temperature. A pantry or kitchen cabinet, away from direct sunlight and heat sources, is ideal. Clear glass jars are fine, but dark-colored containers offer even more protection from light exposure, which can also degrade quality over time. If your honey is already crystallized, don't toss it. Just place the container in a bowl of warm water and stir gently until the crystals dissolve. Avoid microwaving it directly, as high heat can damage the enzymes that give honey its nutritional benefits. Honey doesn't need help staying fresh. It just needs to be left alone. Up next, we'll talk about a beloved cooking oil that many people chill to extend its shelf life, without realizing it might be doing the opposite. Have you ever refrigerated your honey thinking it would keep longer? Or do you have a favorite brand or storage trick that keeps it perfectly smooth? Share it with us in the comments. Have you ever pulled a bottle of olive oil from your fridge only to find it cloudy, thick, or semi-solid, and wondered if it's still okay to use? If so, you're not alone. Many well-meaning home cooks refrigerate their olive oil to make it last longer, but end up doing more harm than good. Olive oil is one of the healthiest fats you can include in your diet, especially as you age. It's rich in monounsaturated fats, anti-inflammatory compounds, and powerful antioxidants that support heart and brain health. But storing it in the fridge, that's where the benefits can start to fade. When olive oil is exposed to cold temperatures, the natural waxes and fats in the oil begin to solidify, creating a cloudy, thick, or even grainy texture. While this doesn't mean the oil has gone bad, it can be a nuisance, especially if you're about to cook or drizzle it over a fresh salad. You'll often have to wait for it to return to room temperature before it flows smoothly again, and frequent temperature swings can gradually break down the oil's delicate flavor and nutritional value. There's also another issue you might not see: condensation. When refrigerated oil is brought back into a warmer environment, moisture can form inside the bottle. Even tiny amounts of water can promote bacterial growth and shorten the oil's shelf life, particularly problematic for extra virgin olive oil, which is more sensitive than refined varieties. The best way to store olive oil is in a cool, dark place, like a kitchen cupboard away from the stove or a dedicated pantry. Choose containers made of dark glass or stainless steel to protect it from light, and always close the cap tightly to reduce oxidation. According to the North American Olive Oil Association, when properly stored, olive oil can retain its flavor and health benefits for 12 to 24 months depending on the type. So if you're investing in a high-quality bottle of olive oil, maybe from a California orchard or a small Mediterranean producer, it deserves proper care. And that's a wrap on our top 10 foods you should never refrigerate. Which of these surprised you the most? Have you been storing your olive oil in the fridge all this time? Let us know your thoughts or favorite storage tips in the comments. Have you ever stopped to wonder how many of your everyday kitchen habits are actually working against your health? Not because of what you eat, but how you store it. We often think of the refrigerator as the ultimate tool for food preservation, and while it's absolutely essential for keeping certain items fresh and safe, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. In fact, refrigerating the wrong foods can do more than dull flavors. It can alter textures, reduce nutrient content, and even lead to food waste or health concerns. Throughout this guide, we've explored 10 common foods that many of us instinctively toss into the fridge, often without realizing the hidden costs. From potatoes forming carcinogenic compounds when cold stored, to tomatoes losing their vibrant flavor and antioxidants, every example has shown how small storage mistakes can have real-world impacts, especially for older adults striving to make every bite count. We've talked about the surprising downsides of chilling garlic, onions, and bread. We've uncovered how cold can stunt ripening in avocados and bananas, zap the sweetness from melons, and crystallize honey into an unusable lump. And we've seen why even health heroes like olive oil deserve better than the back of your fridge. But the good news is, these are all simple fixes, with just a few small changes, like using a mesh bag instead of plastic, storing whole fruits on the counter instead of the crisper, or moving olive oil to a cool cupboard. You can preserve more flavor, boost nutritional value, and stretch your grocery dollar further. And when you're focused on eating well later in life, every little advantage matters. Less food waste, better tasting meals, a kitchen that truly works for your health, not against it. So next time you bring home groceries, take a moment to rethink what goes in the fridge and what might be better off on the counter. Which of these storage tips was the biggest eye-opener for you? Do you have any old family tricks or storage wisdom you've learned over the years? Share them in the comments. We'd love to learn from you too.